Welcome to the Art of Adventure podcast. I'm your host, Mac Tegg. I'm an illustrator, and I created this podcast to get to know other artists who are creating fantasy and sci-fi artwork. Joining me today is Leo of LFOSR. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, it's so far so good. Really excited to be on. Excited to talk to you. Curious what you want to talk about.
Great. Let me first start with how old are you, and when did you start getting into the fantasy genre?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just turned 30. I'll be 31 this year, so I'm relatively young as far as the hobby goes. But I started when I was about, I want to say 8 or 9. I got that. My first book was actually like a first D&D or TT RPG related book was Ghost Walk, which is like a setting centric book, and I didn't get the player's handbook or the Dungeons Master's Guide until much later. For some reason I ended up with the Ghost Walk campaign setting, which is like an afterlife setting, so I've always been like really focused on settings and stuff because that's how my friend would play. We wouldn't play Dungeons and Dragons, we would make our own game, but we would use the source material as like inspiration to run our own adventures, and we would use like Legos and stuff. So that's really how I got started. And I didn't really start doing artwork kind of I've been doing different artwork projects for a very long time, but like I didn't start doing RPG artwork until like February of last year. I really started getting into it. Yeah, so it's a relatively new thing for me, and the whole OSR thing is still relatively new for me. I discovered it maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
So it just kind of, it's just been like inspiration building, and it just kind of boiled over, and here I am making artwork, left and right.
Nice. Yeah, I'm also pretty relatively new. I just started last year.
Yeah.
So we're both babies.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, but I'm enjoying it so far. It's been a blast.
So did this campaign setting book kind of introduce you to fantasy, or did you get into it through movies or video games or anything like that?
Yeah, it was definitely video games. I'm thinking early on. A friend of mine was very early into like the Diablo series and stuff like that. So, and I got into World of Warcraft pretty early via Warcraft. I was a big fan of Warcraft and Starcraft, all the Blizzard games and stuff. So
Nice.
it was around. Fantasy was always around, but we never really played like what we would call tabletop role playing games. Is more just kind of less engaging content where we weren't role playing per se. That kind of came later on, but the setting book was really the first, like, we were creating an imaginary world that wasn't being displayed on a television type deal.
Nice. So you did this with a few friends. How many friends were you doing this with?
I had one friend, but I've had one childhood friend that's been my friend entirely for now. Chance, he's a great guy. He was a little bit older than me, so he understood a lot of the mechanics, but he understood that I was too young to really understand a lot of the mechanics, so we would just like dumb things down and throw some dice and pretend the high numbers were good or whatever,
Yeah.
So I wasn't alone in that, but my dad didn't really play any of the older games. I did have some of the older supplements later on. I kind of got gifted them, but I never really had like someone else really playing, tabletop role-playing games. It was kind of just the one core best friend that kind of grew out. And then now I have, there's quite a bit of few people that, I can play with today. So that ranges from online, all the people I've met online and stuff, and all the people I have in real life that I can't unfortunately play with right now, but I will be able to in the future, hopefully. All those people, I have them now, but I didn't have them back then. It was kind of just more of a one-on-one thing with me and my best friend, really.
Oh, nice. Okay. So were they into the art scene at all?
Definitely. We had certain art styles that we both kind of liked. We weren't aware of the older style that's currently like, making its rounds or being revived, I guess you would say now. We weren't aware of that kind of older style. We were like, there was the early Baldur's Gate games and stuff. We really loved the artwork that was included in like the manuals and stuff like that. I was a big fan of Neverwinter, and a lot of the Neverwinter Nights artwork was like really evocative to us. So we always had like the posters that came with those games and stuff always hanging up.
Yeah.
So we loved that type of stuff, and the covers at the time, for Ghost Walk especially, is like a beautiful painterly, scene that's going on. It was something that was out of the realm of me being able to draw at the time. But the artwork that we were into did inspire a lot of we made like little 3-panel comics out of 8.5 by 11 line pieces of notebook paper and stuff, and we would try to emulate that style, but of course we were nowhere near that. But it was like that early 90s, mid 2000s PC RPG era of artwork was really big to us.
Oh yeah. Did you have anyone artistic in your family?
Yeah, my dad was definitely always artistic. He's an engineer. I come from a long line of engineers, so I think I would be like the fifth engineer if I were to become one in a line. So he was always kind of like mechanically like really good at drawing. He would draw like his schematics, and stuff like that. And I would always have like a blank notebook that I would draw in, and he would at night after I would go to bed, he would open it and complete my drawings, or like draw additional stuff, or kind of give me little tips on like, oh, he shades in my line work and kind of shows me how to do shading and that kind of stuff. So that was definitely a big influence. And his the kind of mechanical nature of his illustration was kind of cool because he did like little bits of stippling, which obviously I'm big on, and so it was definitely a big influence as far as that goes. He was probably my biggest like personal art influence.
Speaking of your technique, so are you only digital?
It's kind of currently, it kind of ranges. Like it's half. I do different things for different pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like out of the gate, a lot of people assume it's full digital, and I can see why, because the end result is kind of an over-processed, intentionally digitally over-processed image. But I usually start with a pencil sketch, on some nice paper, and then I'll get my I'm a big fan of like SureTake pens and Tombow pens, so I'll bust those out and I'll start inking the lines after all that stuff, and usually there'll be like a subject matter and then a background, and I'll do most of the subject in lines and then start stippling and start adding major shading. I won't fill in the major blocks of ink just because I don't want to waste ink. So I'll wait later for that, and I'll kind of get it to a certain extent where the focus is, or the main subject is pretty much shaded and pretty much where I want it, and then I'll scan it, and then from there I'll kind of tackle the background. And usually I used to do all this traditionally with the background, and stippling a background can take so long for a landscape, and it's very easy to mess up, so it's very frustrating and time consuming. And I used to do it a lot, and I just kind of ran into I found it took a long time kind of figuring out how I wanted to do the digital version of what I was doing traditionally. So I kind of thought about it and realized the backgrounds would be the best place to kind of experiment with that. So I started experimenting with Photoshop. I predominantly use Photoshop with the cheapest Wacom tablet you can buy. It really is the cheapest one, and it doesn't have a screen on it or anything. It's just a full tablet, so I stare at my screen, and I was able to take the default Photoshop brushes and kind of mold them into a way that emulates close to my style. And that was a long process. I took maybe 2 or 3 months alone just kind of figuring that out, and I got to a point where I was kind of happy with it. So a lot of like the foreground stuff will be traditional. I'll scan it, and then I'll kind of edit it, fill in the dark spots I didn't want to waste ink on, and then kind of tackle the background digitally, emulating my traditional style. And then the whole thing kind of comes together, and then at the end of it I kind of export it, and then I do a little bit of like behind the scenes export magic on it to kind of overlay colors and get certain kind of like dithering effects that I really enjoy. And then at the end of you see the end result of it, and it gives it a certain look that I haven't really seen, but it's still, it harkens back to the original style that was kind of inspiring me, the stippled artwork from the AD&D series especially was like really inspirational once I discovered it at that point. And so just kind of emulating that, and here I am. It is what it is. It's kind of half I guess you would call it, like a hybrid digital. But I do find myself becoming more digital as time constraints of an artist. It's just quicker to do digital sometimes. So I find myself doing digital a little bit more, but I still always find myself doing traditional when I'm sitting on the couch, watching television with my family or something. I got a notebook where I'm still doing traditional. Nice. So it's like both.
Yeah, awesome. You were actually a big inspiration to me when I'm doing landscape stuff, because you have such a unique style.
Thank you.
Yeah, your mountains and stuff are especially inspiring, which leads me to my next topic, a packet of particular peaks.
Oh, yes.
Would you like to talk about that for a little while?
Yeah, sure. So that's kind of my first, my big first project in the RPG scene. and it's obviously I focus a lot on landscapes and mountains, especially. I love doing mountains. I spent a long time doing mountains. I did mountains since I was a kid. I just love doing it. I don't know what it is. And so I kind of was thinking, as I was gaining a little bit of popularity, I was kind of thinking, well, how can I mesh my passion for this specific type of landscape with something that's a little bit gameable for RPG players, for, dungeon masters or game masters to use at their table. So I was thinking, oh, it would be really cool if I could kind of take very mountain-centric settings, not just one, but maybe multiple, so I have room to play with different styles in each type of mountainscape. And so it kind of developed into this idea of a packet of 3 peaks, and they're all kind of individually inspired by certain things that, range from certain emotions that everybody feels to experiences like sleep, deep sleep dreams, and then ultimately it gets a bit darker and things like, inspired by death or loss and stuff like that. So I took a moment and kind of infused character into each of these mountain settings and kind of fleshed out from there each one that I wanted to do. And next thing you know, I had this kind of packet of particular peaks that I wanted to mess with and kind of show people. And I was thinking about what was kind of the best way to go about distributing that and getting that to people. My standards are very high when it comes to like personal printing and stuff. I come from like a marketing professional background, so I have a very high standard as far as that goes. So I wanted to invest quite a bit of myself into it, and including the materials, making it as high as quality as I possibly could. And so I kind of realized I should kickstart it. And so I took the concept over to Kickstarter, and it did really well on Kickstarter. So right now I'm wrapping up, finishing up the master document so we can get it into production and then get it into people's hands. And I think people are pretty excited. I've been sharing some of the art. It's been really, really cool to see people's excitement for it. Yeah. I'm extremely excited for it. It's kind of like I said, it's my first kind of plunge into the scene. So it's a little bit, nerve wracking, just making sure and doing everything correctly, but it's been a blast. There's such a support net for this community, so it's any questions I have are immediately answered just by friends on Discord or the RPG community. So yeah, that's my little pack. It's my little pet project, and I think it's people are going to be pretty surprised at the contents. I think it's going to be kind of cool. I'm really interested in seeing people's reactions to it, aside from just the art. If you enjoy my artwork, you'll probably enjoy just the artwork in it, but the contents especially, I'm very excited for people to see. So yeah, it's my first project, and we'll see how it goes.
And how did the Kickstarter campaign go?
Oh, really, really well. It did surprisingly well. It kind of hit at a perfect moment of, I was in December of last year, I kind of transitioned out of my job that I had been in for 5+ years. Just kind of, it was really complicated situation relating to, just health concerns and stuff like that. And I was basically kind of forced to leave at a certain extent. And so I left, and I was kind of just sitting there thinking about, what can I do? What can I, should I take a shot at Kickstarter and really, putting a lot of my marketing experience into setting up the campaign and presenting the project? And so I did, and I kind of spoke with my family, and they all kind of were very encouraging. I spoke to people online, people I talked to a lot, just kind of tossing the idea out, and they're all very, very encouraging. And so I kind of just took a chance on it, and it did really well. It came at the perfect time to where I genuinely needed income to supplement my lack of income, due to the situations that a lot of people are dealing with in the world currently, unfortunately. Yeah. And so it did really, really well, and it was surprising to see how well it did. Every morning I was waking up and just kind of flabbergasted, and everybody was so excited for me. And as we continue to realize how big of a impact this really was for not only my little company over here, my little art studio over here, but to the other outside RPG community, are really accepting of a new product coming out of nowhere and supporting it like this on Kickstarter is so incredibly inspiring, and it's making this possible. That's the only reason I'm able to do this. So it went really, really well, and I really encourage, any RPG creators that are maybe struggling with the concept of funding their first project or something and think they may not have, the clout or the recognition or whatever, really take a moment to consider what other people are doing, because you can get a lot of support from this community that's really willing to genuinely put money behind a project that they think is cool. So it went really well. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Are you working on any new gameable projects?
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yeah. I have friends that have to hold me back from doing other projects because I have so many other projects. I got a notebook sitting right next to me full of like isometric dungeons that I kind of want to put together. So I'll probably be doing most realistically, as far as what I'm going to be releasing soon, I'm going to finish up the first run of the Peaks, the packet, and so I will go ahead and get those out to everyone that backed them. I'm very excited for that, and then after that, I'll probably do a pre-order for the next run, kind of based on seeing how people want. If they want more, I'll go ahead and give them more, and then after that, I have a cool little trifold which I can maybe tease to you a little bit that I can sell pretty soon, and this is just a little dungeon trifold that's ready to use. You could throw it on a table and start playing it at any point.
That's nice.
I have a few of these in the work, and I have a lot of smaller supplements that you can just pull off of your shelf and start playing with any system. So I got a lot of those in the works, and then I do have a conclusion to, well, I guess it's not really a conclusion. I want to continue a packet series, and so eventually, once I kind of wrap up the Peaks and finalize the pre-order and any changes that need to be made, I would like to start tackling the next Kickstarter campaign. And I'm not quite sure if that will be superseded by another idea I have, which I'm not going to start teasing yet. We'll see. I'm still getting information if the feasibility of my other idea, so things might be changing, but I do have a lot of stuff in the works, and it's really, I'm not really ready to release any of it until I get a packet of particular Peaks finished and out to backers first, and then I'm going to have so much stuff ready to go once that's done, so I hope everybody's ready.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited for the packet. I'm one of the backers, so
I appreciate it.
Be reviewing it for my blog.
So now you're getting me nervous.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do just fine.
Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what you think.
So you mentioned engineering. Did you go to school for engineering?
No, I'm a high school dropout, to be 150% honest. I slipped into the internet generation of being self-taught, and so I really come from do-it-yourself type of deal of YouTube education, internet education, and that type of stuff. So I've climbed a few ladders in a few different industries, and the job I just exited was the director of marketing for a job that was kind of surrounding a much more serious topic, and it was a much more heavier topic. So it's nice to kind of transition out of that. But I didn't go to school for any of this. I'm not classically trained as far as artwork goes either. It's, again, self-taught, just the amazing wealth of resources that's available online. So I just kind of do my due and learn watch tutorials and kind of go from there.
Nice. Who are some other artists, or perhaps some specific pieces of artwork or film, other media that really inspire you?
There's a lot. I actually have the first AD&D module that I got was A4. I have a kind of a dirty, cheap print of it right here. So it's in the Dungeons of the Slave Lords. I don't know how I got a copy of this. I was like 16. And a lot of this artwork is Errol Otis, and his work is just so evocative and so inspiring. So his stuff definitely, specifically a lot of the illustrations in this A4 was just outstanding to me. So all of his stuff just kind of hits me in a certain way, ranging from his painterly kind of out there psychedelic stuff to his more black and white line work with a heavy stippling, that kind of stuff. It's very evocative and inspirational to me. There's a lot of the artwork from Neverwinter Nights too. I'm still a big fan of. I still have the posters of, and I still look at quite a bit. So I really enjoy those stuff. And as far as like older, media in general, I'm such a big fan of Princess Bride. For some reason, I can never get that movie out of my head, and I honestly think of, I don't know where they filmed it. I should probably know where they filmed it. It's probably nowhere special, but a lot of the landscapes that they show in that movie is like, I watched it 700 times as a kid, so a lot of the landscapes are just in my head, and I refer to them when I'm drawing sometimes. So it's like, that was really inspirational. I would say that Princess Bride, that's probably one you weren't expecting.
Who in your life has encouraged you?
Well, it's definitely my family. Both my parents have been, I've been very privileged to have both my parents in my life, and they're incredibly supportive of this. And this was a very scary transition as far as they were concerned from the outside looking in, as I started to take this art a little more serious and rely on it as, kind of a career. They were both, had small concerns, but that they were very supportive. So my parents definitely, and then my girlfriend Megan, she's incredibly supportive of what I'm doing right now. So, and that's that impacts the family home, so
Yeah.
she's the one that matters the most as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, and then friends and family, a lot of the friends don't really understand what I'm doing. Friends from high school don't understand, but they're all supportive. So I really appreciate a lot of the people that are very supportive. But I would have to say overall, my parents are the ones that are really driving it home for me.
Nice. Do you have a dream project, or a dream client?
Oh, that's a good question. I do. This kind of somewhat relates to the secret project I might have been talking about earlier. But I'm like I said, I'm only 30. I say only, but I'm 30, so I'm a 90s baby. So a lot of the products that were very popular at the time in the 90s left huge impacts on me. I'm very nostalgic focused, I guess you could say. And so a lot of the trading cards from the Pokemon era or the Yu-Gi-Oh era, I love those I love the holographic that was just used, just obnoxiously put on everything. I love the hollow foil and all those aesthetic. I'd really, really love to explore incorporating that into an older RPG fantasy style, kind of hitting that spot when the 70s was psychedelic and they were experimenting with RPG art. I would love to kind of try to mash those two aesthetics together somehow. I'm not quite sure how I would do that, but I think that would be kind of cool. Yeah, just something like that. Just something that would just hurts your eyes, but also gives you those same vibes of this is old school artwork, and I want to be in that world, that weird world. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, no, that's a great answer. So you mentioned that you worked in marketing. I can definitely tell this based on your Instagram feed.
Thank you.
So you started out doing black and white, and then you started using these colored backgrounds. What inspired that change?
So it was... it really wasn't from any... I do present my Instagram in a certain way that's very pleasing to the eyes. I like the white border around everything, and that is an intentional marketing decision I'd make. And I'm actually cropping a lot of the artwork that I'm showing to fit in that square, so it kind of hurts in a certain way, but it encourages people to buy the product that the full artwork is in, right? But I started originally doing black and white just because I didn't think of any other reason to do color. I wanted to do black and white, and I was, after a few months of doing black and white, I was sitting there reading one of my old AD&D books. I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the oldest ones I have, and I was kind of just appreciating some of the artwork, and it had the specific kind of tone to the paper because it had been aged. It probably sat in someone's home that in the sunlight or something, or there might have been a smoker in the house. I don't know what it was that caused it to give it this yellow, kind of off natural, kind of interesting text to it, and just the way the ink had aged as well. It wasn't black anymore. It was kind of an off gray. It was kind of an interesting gray. And so what I actually did is I scanned the oldest book I had and sampled the paper and the ink color, and I threw that overlay on my work in Photoshop, and I was just like, oh, that's helping the vibe that I'm going for even more of this is an older world that you're kind of looking at. And so I've been doing it ever since, and it is something that I do apply digitally, but I have since I've kind of altered my traditional stuff to where any books that I'm printing are going to be printed in this kind of off yellow, natural kind of off-white kind of paper to reflect what you see on my Instagram and stuff. So it's an artistic style that I'm going forward with pretty hard. I changed my logo to match it and everything. So it's something that oh, thank you. And that's something I've done too, is logo design and trying to make use of the marketing side of things that I do know. And marketing's a weird beast where it's a lot of it's kind of not bad per se, but it's a little bit dirty, and marketing is kind of an odd thing that we have around us, and I kind of want to, in my personal brand and my artwork and stuff, I kind of want to use genuine good marketing. I want to use it in a way that's encouraging content for people to check out, even if it's not my own, type of deal, stuff they would genuinely enjoy. I don't want to blast stuff in front of people's faces, so I kind of keep my Instagram page very just clean, straightforward. I don't post daily. Not to say that posting daily is bad if someone's doing that, but I just try to, I have certain limits that I try to keep, and that artistic border with that color is one of those things that it's just that's what I'm doing from now on. So that's how that came about.
Nice. Well, it looks great. You're definitely an inspiration to me.
Oh, thank you.
I try to keep my grid pretty clean too.
It's a big part of it. A lot of people don't really realize how big of a importance that is when you're trying to grow, and especially on Instagram. That's very important. It's just, how does your grid look?
Definitely. Yeah. What I guess what do you do outside of art, like in your free time?
Oh man, I could fill up a lot of this podcast with that. I wear a lot of hats. I have a lot of hobbies. I do a lot of different things, so I'm always up to something. But I'm really into music. Like that's another wheelhouse that I'm very familiar with. Is I'm in a band that's kind of like a technical death metal band, which is not relating to RPGs whatsoever. But I've been doing, that scene for a long, long time. I've gone on tours and stuff, so
Nice.
I've played a lot of shows. So that's kind of a whole nother world that I've visited. Aside from that, I'm just very video game centric. I like playing with video games. I like creating a lot of video games, so that there's too many video games to play these days, but that's something I certainly like to invest a certain amount of time into doing. I used to ride BMX a lot. I stopped doing that just because I'm getting a little too old and it hurts a little too much. But and then cars, I like working on my cars. I have my stupid Miata and the stuff that I really enjoy. So I'm kind of all over the place. I get into all kinds of I'm putting my hand in all kinds of different baskets and stuff. So you might see, influences of that pop into my Twitter feed once in a while. So if you're wondering why I'm posting about cars or something, that's why.
I see. Yeah, you mentioned the metal. You recently did artwork for Frozen Screams. Did they contact you about that with an idea, or did you approach them?
John Death Nurse, he runs Frozen Screams, and he's been running the label before the zine, I believe, and it goes back quite a while. And he reached out to me, I believe, on Instagram, and he was kind of just picking my brain whether or not I wanted to submit artwork to it, because the way the zine works is, he kind of hits up artists that are interested in the topic and says, are you interested in submitting some art for this? And you kind of keep all the rights to it, so if you want to use it for something else, that's cool. And he reached out to me, and I was really excited because I owned all the issues previous to that. I loved the zine, so it was cool to kind of talk to him. And I was kind of just picking his brain a little bit. And this was early on. This was after issue 3 had released, so I knew he was pretty early into finding artists. So I was like, "What's up with the cover?" And he was like, "I don't have a cover." And I was like, "Let me try something." So I started a spread, and then I kind of just sketched out some of it, got some of the detailing in. I threw the sketch over to John, and he was super stoked. He was like, "I don't know what you're up to, but this is coming along really cool." And so it took a while. It was definitely a big drawing, and it's really intricate, but fun to do, kind of outside of the box. And I had so many different influences that were coming in, through my brain, just kind of letting the pen and pencil flow. And so I finished it up. I sent it over to John. He was super, super happy with it. He was blown away with it, and he took it. The whole like retro theme of like the sci-fi horror theme was all him. That's totally, he added the colors to it. He did the logo and all that stuff. And once I saw that, I was like, yes, that's perfect. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just like thinking about some weird landscape and some weird twisted, world, kind of Cthulhu inspired a little bit. And he took it to the next level as far as the theming and stuff. But very, very cool project to work on, and I'm very happy that he reached out. I love to work with John. I would love to work with him again on another issue.
Are there any other clients that you've worked for that you would work for again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's plenty. Caverns of Heresy is he's one of the first guys that reached out to me and really commissioned me when I was in the scene. And Rogueland was one of the first big products that I got to work on, and I carried a lot of the artwork. There's many other artists that were involved with it, but he came to me pretty early on, and I was encouraging him to flesh the project out a little bit more. And I love working with him. I'm really hoping to work more with him in the future. He's got a lot of cool ideas coming up in the future. Really good person to follow if you want to kind of just follow newer takes on older kind of concepts and stuff. Like his business card game was like so cool. It was such an interesting concept on the traditional system, and so I definitely really, really want to look forward to working with him. And then Melsonia Art Council, we've worked a little bit. I don't think it's quite out yet, but we're excellent company to work with across the board. Everyone that I talked to was extremely, knew exactly what they wanted, and it helped the process go so much smoother, and everybody was just clear and able to work through it. And that's, a very professional environment that, from the companies I come from before this, seeing that was like, oh wow, this works excellent. So I would absolutely love to work with them at any point. And there's all kinds of people that I've done little commissions with. I've never really had a bad experience as far as like anyone that I've worked with. So all my clients have just been, I'm super stoked when they come to me. I'm so proud to help visualize a world that's going on in their head. So I'm typically just stoked on everything that I get to be a part of. So, and I think overall, kind of pie in the sky, I would really, really like to work with like some of the Morkborg guys and stuff like that. I would love to get into some of the darker stuff, but we have nothing in the works yet, but I would like to reach out to them at some point, maybe.
Is there a setting or genre outside of fantasy that you would like to do some work for? I guess more
yes,
science fiction stuff, perhaps.
Definitely. There's all kinds of settings I really, really want to work on. I'm a big fan of Cthulhu Dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great system, and I would love to. I already have a bunch of adventures or mysteries, I guess they're called, already done for those. I just need to do artwork for them, but it's stuff I've used in my personal games. So I would love to do like a third-party Cthulhu Dark, kind of Cthulhu-centric product. That'd be really cool. I love those types of settings, just kind of the mind twisting. And then I would also really love to do something sci-fi. Like that would be really, really cool. I love retrofuturism. Old like retro sci-fi airbrush art is a huge influence on my stuff, so it's like I love seeing that stuff. So I'd like to emulate kind of that and maybe do like a sci-fi. I know there's a few sci-fi projects kind of being worked on right now, and I do have some sci-fi work that's coming out, not soon but in the future. So I would love to do some cool space stuff, and there's so many amazing space systems right now, so it's like I kind of have so many systems I could work with, you know, so that's definitely going to be coming down the pipe. And then eventually I would really, really like to do kind of a gonzo setting of my own that involves a lot of work, but that would kind of cross into potential video game type of ideas and stuff, so that's a way later, so I shouldn't really get into that. But
what do you mean gonzo?
Like kind of hard to describe in the point of like it's not really like one genre that I could just apply to it. It would kind of be like you would probably describe it as multiple genres kind of mashed up together, in the same way that it's like from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, it's this, and then you kind of read it and you're like, well, wait, no, it's actually this, or is it that, or is it this, that type of thing. I would love to do something like that.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to other artists that are either in the community already and struggling, or maybe just starting out trying to, learn the ropes?
Oh yeah, I mean there's so many artists out there that I see that kind of seem to get stagnant a little bit in their followings, and there's a number of reasons that can occur, but a lot of I would really encourage consistency, and that can kind of be interpreted in multiple different ways, and I'd say that consistency, and not only in that like you're going to post once a week or you're going to post twice a week, that's up to you to decide the frequency you really want to post, but consistency in art style, and also the level of quality of things that you're willing to post online. If you find yourself, you post something that you put, 12 hours into and it does really good, you noticed it did, 10% or 50% or 100% better than your average post does, maybe kind of take a moment to realize maybe I should invest that type of time into my future drawings as well, just to kind of cater to where you're seeing an uptick of engagement. Really, if that's your goal, is to grow social media, for instance, like you really kind of want to cater to engagement. And another big thing of just being receptive to to the community, not isolating yourself. It's really easy, especially for artists and writers, I imagine too, to kind of get so caught up in their own work that you're just so focused on your own table that you kind of don't engage much with the outside community, and that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot in this community, because there's so many good resources, so many good people, so many people that would be interested in your work but aren't even aware of your work because you're not posting comments on other people's questions that they're asking, or you're not posting artworks in challenges, you're not participating in jams, you're not doing this type of stuff. So community engagement is really, really key, I feel like, and that may not even be just an art specific thing, but just really kind of, and that will help you really get recognized as far as like if you have a niche, kind of like I have a niche. There's an overall RPG community, but there's this OSR, and there's like a little bubble of old school artwork that people kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
So you can kind of solidify your place in that little niche if you kind of engage in that same niche community.
Definitely.
So if you really enjoy, so if you enjoy like a comic, related stuff, really engage in comic stuff. Don't just outside view it and don't like the post. Really engage with it. So I'd really encourage people to do that.
Where are you the most social online?
It's kind of funny. It's most active, I guess Discord. Was Discord like count?
Sure, yeah.
I engage with Discord the most just because it's easy to directly contact people. There's, group rooms that you could come in and post your artwork and get some feedback on. So most definitely I'm on Discord the most. I really enjoy the interactions I have there for the most part. Followed up by, Instagram's probably my most successful. It is my most successful platform. And that's just the very visual centric platforms, or obviously an artist can kind of blossom there a little more easily than other platforms. So I do really well there. And you can follow me there at LF_OSR. There's tons and tons of, other artists. There's so many artists on Instagram. So I hang out there quite a bit, just checking out other art and stuff. And then Twitter, I'm less and less engaging in Twitter. I find, there's certain, problematic issues that kind of Twitter can kind of encourage, I feel like, and that's not an RPG specific problem. It's just the way the platform kind of operates. So I kind of find myself disengaging a little bit more there. And but besides that, also the OSR Pit, which is a forum, and I really love the Pit. I haven't gotten to engage with it as much lately because I've been so busy. But it's an old school forum, and again, 90s kid, so I love forums. I love the old school internet forums. So you can find me there. I'm lurking at the moment for the most part, but I usually post there quite often, just kind of engaging with other people's content. And then Reddit, I love the the OSR Reddits and stuff like that. I enjoy Reddit a lot. I tend to post not as often there, but you can find me there once in a while. I'll be giving advice or asking for advice sometimes. So. But besides that, I think that's it. Overall Discord is really, and I would encourage other creators and artists, if you already don't have Discord, really get into Discord and find a few rooms, a few servers that are catering to what you're really into, and really engage with it, because you'll find that there's people out there that are just as into, or will be just as into what you're into. You just got to be there. You got to talk. You got to engage with all those people.
Yeah, totally. And I find that Discord is a great place, especially if you're looking for online games to play with people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm new to the playing online thing. Like, this is literally first game online was this year.
Wow.
And so that's a new thing. That's just the condition of the world. It is what it is. But there are so many, not only games out there, there's so many amazing DMs that are running games right now that I would love to play for. If you are interested in getting a good game of online tabletop role playing, Discord's where you're probably going to find those good games.
So are you game master or a player, or both?
Traditionally game master. I think I'm overall pretty much my entire life I've been a game master. I love playing as a player though, so I even have a group that I play with now where it's like I'm not going to DM permanently. So we cycle out DMs based on the one shot or whatever we want to do. So I'm traditionally overall DM centric. I love creating worlds. I love world building, even if the players don't see the content I'm creating. I love all that stuff. So even if I was a player, I'd still be creating worlds, but I'm very much a DM, I think, in the heart.
Nice. Yeah, same. So I guess I wanted to give you some time to just plug your projects, and then maybe some artists that you think people should check out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can follow me pretty much on all the social media platforms I mentioned earlier. It should all be LF_OSR. And, you can, I got the packet of the Peaks is wrapping up right now, and we're going to be doing a pre-order like I mentioned earlier. So if you didn't get a copy during the Kickstarter, you will be able to get a copy in this pre-order. So stay tuned for that. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Those are where you'll predominantly be finding the information on that. And keep an eye on other things I'm doing. If you're interested in just quick, art heavy centric, RPG stuff you can throw on your table that night and start playing it, follow me. You'll probably be interested in the stuff I'm up to. If you like old school art, obviously follow me. I think you'll enjoy the stuff I'm posting about and other people's stuff I'm sharing. There's so many artists out there that I would love to shout out. I'll try to keep it short though. I think you're probably familiar with Perplexing Ruins. Great artist. I love his stuff, and he does some cool, if you want to see genuine new perspectives on what could be called RPG art now, check out some of his stuff. If you want to see like felt portraits being used for role-playing product, follow Perplexing Runes. Whiskey and Ink is a guy that I really enjoy. He does maps, but he's very stipple-centric like me, and so I appreciate his poor wrist, going into all that and doing all the work. So definitely check out Whiskey and Ink if you're into maps that are kind of all on my style. Luke the Dragon Slayer, he's a really cool guy. I really love seeing his line work. It's kind of like your work, where it's just the line work is just so clean and it's begging for shading, and I love that like super evocative line work. So if you're into that, definitely follow Luke the Dragon Slayer. Pencils and Dragons, great content, great penmanship, even though his name's Pencils and Dragons and most of his stuff is ink. Great artist. He's really cool, and a lot of his stuff is extremely gameable, so you can just kind of, there's a map, it's good to go. And then also great stuff for like inspiring NPC portraits and that kind of stuff. A newer artist that I think has been around for a while, but I'm as of recently getting into Noir Fade, and I believe they were working with Alex from Black Oath Entertainment. I don't know if you think that cool artist, like heavy, dark, like if you like death metal artwork and RPGs together, definitely check out Norfade. And then Hodag, of course. Hodag, I think if people aren't aware of, Hodag definitely harkens back to the old school vibes. There's a certain characteristic that I think he taps into specifically. So if you like the old AD&D and earlier fantasy illustration, definitely follow Hodag.
Yeah, Hodag will be in the next episode, actually.
Sweet. Yeah. You're going to enjoy that. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for joining me again today. Taking this time out of your schedule, can be kind of tough these days. So it was great to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you making the podcast and taking the time out of your day to put all this together. I think people are going to really enjoy it, so thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right, well, have a great night. I'm sure I'll see you on the internet.
Cool.
If you'd like to follow the show on social media, check out theartofadventurecast.com. And if you'd like to see some of my artwork, check out macteg.com. This has been the Art of Adventure podcast. Thank you for listening.